So unfortunately, the time has come and Earth has run out of resources. So one of 6 planeteers have been selected to develop an unknown planet to preserve the future of humanity. Hi, I'm April from Your Turn Gaming, and today we are going to be looking at Planet Unknown. We're going to be talking about how to play the game, how to set it up, what a normal turn looks like between a group of players. So come join me as we enjoy this game together. So to start the game, everybody is going to get a planet. You'll notice that there's 2 sides on here, and what that means is one side is a little bit harder than the other. So for today's example, I'm going to be starting with the brown colored planet side because I feel this one is easier, especially for your first time playing. So I'm going to set today's game up as if there were 4 players playing to give you a good example. I'm going to put the other boards back in the box. Everybody is going to get a corporation board. And you're going to want to set these next to the player's planet. Everybody is going to get one of each color of the trackers. So you'll notice that there is black, blue, red, green, and white. And you're going to place one on each of the zeros at the bottom of each tracker. And we'll talk about how to move them up in just a little bit. And then any extra counters, they just go back in the bag and then put back in the box. Next, you're going to want to put all of your life pods on your map. If you notice on your map, you will see that there are blue spaces with kind of a circular shape. You're going to take one of each of the life pods and you're going to put them on your planet. Now you're going to take all of your meteorites, and because there's only 4 players, you can just put them in a single stack. As the pieces start coming out on the Lazy Susan, you'll start noticing when we're going to use more of the meteorites. Then you're going to give everybody 2 of the rovers. On the card itself, on your corporation board, you'll notice that there is a picture at the bottom that shows the 2 rovers. And on each side of the corporation board, it'll tell you how many rovers you're going to start with. So you just place them on your corporation board until the time has come to use them. Next, you're going to want to take your Civ cards, and you'll notice that the Civ cards work a little bit differently. So they have a number on the back. So this one is a 1, and I've already kind of divided them up. You're going to stack them in order from 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, depending on how many players you have is how many cards you're going to put out plus 1. So because we're doing a 4-player game, I would have 4 cards. And then I'm going to also have 1 more. The rest of the cards I'm going to put back into the box. And I'm going to do that for each one of my Civ decks. Next, each player will take a color to represent their color on their board, as well as when we get to the Lazy Susan part of it, the Space Depot. And then you just want to place it somewhere on your board. While I was also bringing them out, I also brought out these green biomes. And I'll show you when to bring them out onto your board in just a little bit. And last but certainly not least is our Lazy Susan or the Space Depot. So as I mentioned earlier, when you first start this game, you're going to have to punch out all of these different pieces. And there's going to be 12 in each stack. And you want to take one of your pieces, one of the arrows, and you're going to align it with one of the pieces across. And this is going to be how you're going to be able to pick your pieces in the game. Next, you're going to take your objective cards, and like I said, depending on how many players you have, is how many of which side you're actually going to use your objective cards on. So you're going to notice that there is 2 sides to this card. So there's one this way, which is horizontal, and then there's going to be one that is vertical. And the vertical side is more or less if you're playing a single player game. If you're playing with more than 1 player, you're going to obviously be doing the horizontal side. And what you're going to do is you're going to take 1 card and place it between the players. So as you're playing the game, what's going to happen is these are achievements that you're going to be competing with your neighbor towards. So these 2 players, myself and the player to my left, would be competing for this one. It says have the most tech resource at the edge of the planet, so meaning all the way around. Now, nobody else besides me and my opponent to the left would be competing for this. The players across from me would not be playing. Then I would take another card and place it between those players, and then 1 more between the other players. The last thing of the game is to choose who is going to be your station commander, which it makes sense for today is I'm going to be the station commander to show you how this game is going to work. Now that we are all set up after that lengthy setup, it's not that bad once you've done it a few times. Once you've done that, then we're going to start our game. So as I mentioned, the station commander is going to be the player that is going to choose how they're going to move the station depot and which piece they're going to play. So there are some of the rules as we're going along. I'll explain how they work. But what you're going to do is based on where your arrow is lined up will be the pieces that you are allowed to take as part of your planetary that you're trying to establish. So as the starting player, I would choose a piece that I want to start with. Now, the one thing of when you're first starting this game is it has to be played on an outer edge of the board. You can't take a piece and say, oh, I'm going to play it right here. That wouldn't work. You have to make sure that it touches a piece on the outer edge. Okay, so once you've chosen a piece, you're going to take that piece, as well as everybody else that is in this turn. So I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to make sure that it's placed on the outer edge of my planet. Because my piece is lined up right here, I'm going to pretend like this is a pie wedge. I can only choose one of these two pieces. This player, the gray one, can only choose from these two pieces. So they might want to take something like this and place it on the edge of their piece. The purple player will do the same thing. They may want to take it too and place it maybe at the top. And then the yellow player will do the same thing. They'll look at their pieces, maybe decide to take one of these and place it. And this, remember, is done all at the same time. So then, like I mentioned, you'll draft your piece, you'll place your piece, and then you've got to move it on your score tracker. If you notice on each of these pieces, no matter what color it is, there's always going to be two symbols there. And sometimes if there's the meteorite symbol, what would happen then is you would take the meteorite piece and you would immediately place it on top of any one of those pieces that you placed in your planet. Okay, so now we're going to look back at the pieces. If you notice here, I have a rover as well as the tech. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rover cube and I'm going to move it up one. And looking at the rover space, because there is a rover symbol, I am now allowed to place a rover onto my map, placing it onto the piece that I was able to get it on. I can't place it on the planet. I place it on whatever the last piece that I played for. And then I also got text, so I'm going to move it up one space. And you'll notice not every space has a special symbol that you're going to be able to collect an advantage for. Okay, so we're going to do that for each player. Now this symbol is very special. It's the energy symbol. The energy tile is a special tile, and if you notice on your track, there is actually no symbol for this energy symbol. So what happens is when you've placed it, it looks like the solar panel on the board. You get to move an extra symbol up. So this one is the sieve track. So it gets to move up one. So because it's attached to the symbol, it gets to move up another one if you still choose to move that symbol up. Now, if for example, I'm just going to use this as an example. Say I have placed this piece already, and then I decide to place the energy symbol. I could actually use either the sieve or I could use the tech piece to actually advance my symbol because of the energy. The way that it works is you can, once you place the piece orthogonally, meaning left and right, up and down, then you can actually collect a benefit for that particular piece. So I could actually choose to move up the text space, or I could choose to use up the sieve. But because this is not here already, my only choice then is just to move up the sieve an extra space. It's like an extra advantage. And then also, while you're moving up your resources, it doesn't matter the size of your piece. Now, my piece is 3 pieces. It doesn't mean that I get to move my rover up 2 pieces because there's 2 squares. It's just whatever symbol is there, you move up that one number. Now, occasionally you'll notice on the track there is like a pinwheel, and the pinwheel means that you can move any of the other resource up another space. Kind of a special advantage when you get to those. So you may want to try for some of those spaces. Okay, so now that everybody has moved up their tracker, everybody has moved up or placed their piece, I'm going to take the station commander token and I'm going to pass it to the player on the left side. And then a next round starts. Now your triangle never moves the whole game, but you're kind of at the mercy of the player next to you on which piece you're going to be getting to start your game. Now, when you're placing a piece, you can only place it next to or above the piece that you're getting. Now, eventually during the game, if you notice on some of the tech, some pieces will come up and it'll say, tile adjacency placement restrictions may be ignored, meaning you can place pieces at other parts of your planet if you need to find a place to put them. Okay, so now the next player has chosen that they want to maybe draft some of these pieces. So remember, everybody does this at the same time. And now we've hit an interesting part. So as I mentioned, when it comes to the energy square and now the water square, there are special rules that are in place for these. You can place these pieces normally, but sometimes when you get like the water, for example, you can only move the water space, the water tracker up if it's placed on an ice space on your board. So as long as something is placed on your board, one of the pieces of the water, then you get to move up on the water tracker. If, say, I had put it over here, for example, I would only be able to move up my rover space. I wouldn't be able to move up my water space because it's not touching anything water related on the bottom. So I want to make sure that I place it somewhere where it's in the grid and it's touching the water space. So this is ice for the planet, and then we want to add water. So then I would be able to allow my water tracker to move up, and then I would also move up my red one. So for the rover, now I'm always going to place my rover on top of a rover unless there is a ability that allows you to place the rover, and then you would place it on top of a space that's the last one that you played. Okay, so my player moved up. Now he moved his rover up to 1, meaning he can now move his rover 1 space. So for each time you place move your rover tracker up is how many times you can actually move your rover that many spaces. So because I put it on the 1, I can now move 1 space, and eventually you'll notice that there's 2 and 3, and then 4 is the max. Now if I make it all the way to the 4, this 4 is just infinite, and it just keeps going on. There's no spaces after that to actually advance your rover more spaces. And when you're moving the rover, say eventually I have another rover on the board and I'm now at my 4 space. The rovers can actually move in any square on the board. Their goal is to try to collect the meteorites as well as try to collect the life pods. The life pods give you victory points at the end of the game. So if I'm able to get my rover on top of the life pod, I would immediately take the life pod and put it on my victory point tracker. And the same thing for if I get meteorites. If I have a piece that has a meteorite, say right here, and I have my meteorite on top, and I'm able to move 4 spaces, I can divide up how many times my rover moves between the 2. I can choose to go 1, 2, collect the meteorite, and then choose to move the other one, 1, 2. And then you leave the rover on the last space that it's moved to, and then you just place it on your tracker. So that's basically how the rovers work. So now on my board, I also got one of the pinwheel symbols, which is any symbol gets to move up 1. So if I choose to move my rover, I can move it up another space and choose to move it 1 space. Now as I move up on the green one, which is the biomass, if you notice right here, there's a tree symbol. Say my piece is now on the tree, I would immediately collect one of these biomass pieces and I can place it on my board. You must place it immediately, as that's just the way the rules have stated it. It's a great one if you're trying to fill in your board. Okay, so far we have talked about the tech. So each time you get to one of these different levels, you'll notice that that's when you get to claim one of these levels on your mat. And it's a continuous thing throughout the game. It's not like, oh, I get it just this one turn and then it's done. You do get it the whole time. The rover, like I mentioned earlier, is when you see the little rover symbol, that's when you're able to add the rover. The biomass, the special one on this track, would be the tree, and that's when you get to add the individual pieces. The water, as I mentioned, you only get to add the water once you have placed a piece legally onto the ice spaces on your map. The sieve cards, which I haven't talked about yet, when we were setting up, we mentioned that you have, depending on how many players you have, so there's 4 players, you added 1 more card. When you get to do the sieve, you get to look at all the cards. So whoever gets there first, they get to look at all the cards and decide which one they want. Sometimes you'll notice that it says end of game on the bottom of the card. And what that means is you would keep it, say you choose this card, you would keep it hidden next to your board throughout the game. You wouldn't want to reveal it because if it's worth a lot of extra medals at the end of the game, those are extra victory points. You may not want other people to know how many you have. Otherwise, it says immediate on the card. And what that means is you play that right then and there. So you would choose your card, and then whichever one you choose, say you choose the medals, you place it next to your card, you take the sieve stack, then you would place it back where you started it. And that's how the sieve track works. You'll also notice on the sieve track that there's numbers on here, and that's how many victory points that you're going to collect at the end of the game. So if my water, let's just say, was between 4 and 5, you would collect the highest number that you recently passed. So if I'm between the 4 and the 5, the highest number of victory points I would collect would be 4. So I'd get 4 victory points for that. So you do want to keep that in mind as you're moving your pieces up the tracker, is you might want to be looking for some of these victory points. Now it has happened too where sometimes you get a piece and you're like, oh, where should I put it? Say I wanted to really put it right here and a life pod is in the way. What would happen is you would crush that life pod, and the life pod is actually then removed from the game. You can't put it back in the board because there's no spot here, and you don't collect it because now it's gone. And the same thing can actually happen for the rover. Say my rover was right here as I was collecting that last life pod, and I had the piece, and I wanted to put this piece right here. My rover is then crushed too, and then it's removed from the game, and I can't get it back. The only way I get it back is if I have my 2, but that would be my other rover that actually comes back out onto the board. So you want to keep some of these little rules in mind as it would help you place your pieces. It's one thing I love about this game is it's like a big puzzle. In previous videos I did patchwork, which also reminded me of this game, which is why I wanted to do this one next, because I love puzzles just in general. So I found this game to be quite fun. And it can kind of be fun to play against other players too, because you might say, oh, this piece is good for me, but it's bad for them. So you could really be messing up somebody that you're playing with. And going back to the sieve cards, if 2 players both land on the sieve card milestone, so say they both land on the 1, say both players are right here at the same time, the same roll, everything, then the player that has the wings, so the star commander, they would start there and go clockwise. So obviously because he has the star commander station wings, he would get to choose the sieve cards first, and then I would get to choose them second. That's just the way that the turn order goes. Okay, so now that we're going to talk about how the game ends. As I mentioned earlier, the game ends when one of these pieces is not, if one of the depots is totally emptied, so all 12 pieces are gone, or my board is so filled that when I get to one of these pieces, I can't actually fill it in anymore. And that would trigger the end of the game, but the player still does collect the resources for the track. So that is an important feature to remember. So I'm going to set up how to show you how to score the board. So give me a few minutes, which will be a second for you, and I'll be right back. Okay, so as I mentioned, in the board or in the box, they give you a scoring notepad. So what you would do is you would put your players' names, who all is playing with you, corporation name, I didn't really put anything for that one, So first it says to track your planet by rows and by columns. What that means is when you're looking at your planet, so I'm just going to use my planet on how to score this part of the game, and I'm going to ignore just my other players, just so you could see how this works. I would start on one row, and you'll notice that there's obviously some pieces that didn't get filled in. And so what would happen is you're going to go, I always like to start maybe horizontally, and choose an edge. You'll notice that there are numbers on the sides, and these are the medals that you can earn for your completed rows. Okay, so if you look down at the bottom, if you remembered what the empty board looks like, it's basically a huge grid, and you're trying to fill in the rows and both vertically and horizontally to be able to score the points. So I look at the very bottom and I see 1. So I have both of those filled in, so I would get 1 point. I go to the next row, well, I have empty spots, so I can't fill that in. The next row, same thing, I have an empty, another empty, empty. These ones, the same thing. A special note too is if you're not able to collect the meteorites, you can't actually get any points for those rows. So say I had actually been able to fill in the row, if I had had these two filled in, because of the meteorites, I can't actually score points for those rows. Up at the top, so see, here's a good example. I have already filled in the row, but because there's a meteorite here, I can't actually get points. And then I'll get another one for that. So sadly, I only get 2 points for the horizontal rows. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now you're gonna do the vertical. Okay, so here's 1, 2, so I get 4 points so far. This one, there's a meteorite and there's a missing space. There's a meteorite, but the row was filled, still don't get any points. Same thing here, here, meteorite. So here would be another point. So technically I would have only gotten 5 points. So that's why placement is extremely important in this game, because all these empty spaces end up hurting me, which may be one thing you want to pay attention to on your track when you're filling it in. Because maybe sometimes those biomes, getting the single piece might be just the thing you need to fill in some of these blanks. And it's also a matter of whatever the lazy Susan does too. Okay, so then you would fill in the planets, so that would be the 5. Next is resource track. So this is where you would count your corporation board and how many have surpassed the number or the one that it covers. So here I have already passed the 1, so I get 1 point. Past the 2, so that would be 3, 4. I didn't quite get it on the rover, so that's 4 so far. 5 points just for that. So then here I would mark 5. Next, it says life pods. So say you're able to get your rover around, you were driving it, and you were able to collect the life pods. So these blue pieces, you would mark how many you have here. Each one is worth 1 victory point. So I was able to collect 5, so I put 5 here. So the meteorites would be the next one. And so for every 3 meteorites that you have, that's how many points you're gonna get. So for every 3, that's worth 1 point. The other 2 that are here, sadly, don't count for anything. Civ cards would be, as I explained earlier, this is when you would maybe reveal your card to show how many points you get. So this one says it's worth 2 medals. So then I would get another additional 2 points for that. Objectives would be if we were playing with some of the event cards. Then you would just add up your totals, and whoever obviously has the highest point value is declared the winner. But on the rare occasion, if there is a tie, the player with the fewest number of uncovered grid squares win. So if I had covered up more of these squares and say I only had like 1 or 2 showing and my opponent had like 5 showing, then I would win based on that technicality. But if for some reason there is still a tie, then the player with the fewest remaining meteors on the planet would win. Because I have 5 and my opponent only has 1, I would lose and my opponent would win. So then, as I mentioned, the rulebook also gives you some extra modules. It tells you, like I said, the event cards and how to play with those. It also tells you how to play if you're wanting to play just a 2-player game or a single-player game. And then they also tell you in the back of the book some of the different levels on the tech boards. I always choose to play with the same one when everybody is first starting so that we're all starting on an even playing field, especially when this is your first time playing. So that is Planet Unknown. I found this to truly be a very fun strategy tile placement game. I've enjoyed it every time that we have played it so far. The setup is the only thing I'm not too crazy of, because you could tell that it does take a little bit, as well as when you put it away. But, you know, once you've played it a few times, it does get a little bit faster. I hope that you found this video helpful in some way or another. Maybe it's clarifying a rule, or maybe it's just seeing if you might even like the game, or maybe don't like the game. Please give it a thumbs up, as it really does help me out. Subscribe if you are new and you want to see more game videos like this, because I do these all the time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. There's more games out there. Let's go play them.
Now that you've finished watching this video, be sure to check out our other videos. Please also like the video, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the gaming fun. There's more games out there. Let's go play them.